Call this special meeting of the Apache Junction City Council to order. The invocation will be led by Vice Mayor Wilson and the pledge by Councilmember Rizzi.
Heavenly Father, first we want to ask for your assistance for all the firefighters that are working on the bush fire. We also ask for more favorable weather conditions to help them out, as well as all the other fires that are within the state of Arizona. We are now gathered together this evening to address a special subject and issues concerning businesses. We ask for everyone to listen to all sides and concerns and look for the truth and not misinformation. Once we all receive the information, we ask that everyone use wisdom to address these issues and concerns. We as a council want to work with our community so everyone can live, work, enjoy the lifestyle we have here in Apache Junction. And we again ask for your assistance to bring everybody together to achieve a common agreement to move forward. The purpose of this meeting is to bring everyone together to allow for a fully educated community to meet the needs of the entire community. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Surtee,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Barker,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Present.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Here.
Councilmember Struble.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Okay, in a regular meeting, we have a specific order that we go into, but we're going to mix that up some tonight. One of the things we usually do, though, is we usually do announcements or current events. And just breaking today, the governor made an announcement to keep distancing, and he put in the hands of different mayors whether or not to further restrict. And some cities are weighing in on that. As for right now, my decision is it's up to your individual decision to do that. Also, if you're a business and you require it, please don't argue with the business. That's their right to install that. And also, if you know if you're at risk or not, you know, it's usually a certain type of a person that is more susceptible. So stay home if you can. Wear masks if you can. Nobody's telling you not to, and nobody's telling you to either. So I believe in personal liberty, and that's going to be my position for right now. So this is a special meeting. We have only had one other one of these in my entire time on council as mayor. And, you know, we just had one Monday and Tuesday, so this is 3 in a row. So we did not call this meeting for staff to be berated and insulted and yelled at. So I'd like you to be polite in that. And we're going to abide by rules. I'm going to explain how that's going to go here in a little bit. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss state and public nuisance laws and compliance and a legal process of such, and also how to protect businesses in the future if this, you know, this seems to be an ongoing trend, and we want to hear what you think about it. And is it going to continue, and what is the whole process on that? So at this time, usually we do call to the public at the end of the meeting. And I'm going to move call to the public to the beginning of the meeting. We're going to give everyone a chance to speak. And in order to speak, you have to fill out one of these forms that are in the back with your name and address on it. There's a couple questions that don't pertain. Are you in favor or opposed, whatever. Just fill one of these out and hand it to the city clerk, and we will get to that. And we're going to give you 5 or 6 more minutes to go fill those out. Now, this is not a public hearing. In a public hearing, there's discussion back and forth with the speaker. But we can't do that since this is a call to the public. So we are going to listen to what all you're saying, possibly write notes. Then at the end of that, then council will have a discussion on on these items that we've talked about. So as we start into these call to the publics, if anyone still wants to be filling them out, go ahead and do that. We'll still keep taking these. So we have a script that we usually read here for call to the public. This is a time for the public to express requests, communications, comments, and suggestions. Each speaker must have already filled out a request to speak form and handed it to the city clerk. All issues shall be presented in a professional manner without personal attacks. Under the opening meeting law, the council cannot engage in discussion on the issues, but may direct staff, and like we already said, we're going to do that. And there's going to be a 3-minute time limit, and we're ready for a call to the public. I'm going to start out with Terry Kreidler.
You want to say his name? Say that he's next?
No.
Terry Kreidler, 489 North Gold, Apache Junction. Mayor and council members. Perception, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, describes perception as a belief or opinion often held by many people and is based on how things seem. What is the perception of Apache Junction based on the treatment of our business owners? I have 5 examples. One is the Mongolian Grill. 2 sitting council members went to the liquor board to testify against the business getting their license, knowing that other similar businesses rely on the sale of alcohol to make money. These council members testified against the business owners instead of finding a way to help them. This business was minority-owned and is now out of business. Cobb's. Cobb's had a long history, but after remodeling and open, the owner was under constant harassment from the Planning and Development Department. The owner finally forced to close down, and the property was seemingly sold overnight for the new Dutch brothers. This was also a minority-owned business. The Handlebar. This business operates an outdoor kitchen and has amplified outdoor music. I have searched the Planning and Zoning Commission and the council meetings and have yet to find the required CUP for outdoor amplified music. Nor have I seen this business harassed or red tagged for operating an outdoor kitchen or the outdoor music. This business owner is not a minority. Phillies. The former owner pulled a permit to build a shed, but instead built a covered 3-sided stage and began having outdoor concerts. The city has not shut them down and did not make them apply for the required CUP for outdoor amplified music. But the city didn't harass them either. The city attorney did not threaten them with criminal charges. They were not fined, threatened with jail time, or told they would have their property taken from them. This business was rewarded by the city by grandfathering in their violation. They are not minority owned. The Hitching Post is a business currently operates on a prime state piece of real estate with beautiful views. They have been endlessly harassed, turned into criminals, and threatened. For what reason? For operating their bull riding within approved agreement. For using the city code approved parking lot for parking. This business is minority owned. You as the City Planning and Development Director, City Attorney, City Manager, Mayor, and council members have had years in the city employment and elected positions to correct and mitigate the perception of racism and discrimination of our minority business owners. Since this is still an ongoing issue and problem, the perception will continue that the city officials of Apache Junction condone discrimination.
George Schroeder.
George Schroeder, 244 West Virginia, Apache Junction. 2 things. 3, actually. The disparaging difference between business and business is like the person just said. I've been here 36 years. I'm telling you, there are some odd differences how these businesses are treated. We got one on Roosevelt and Gold, northeast corner. They've been there for 20 years. I have turned these people in for drugs, They know that they're drug dealers. Somebody from the city is helping them for 20 years. There's others. That's just the worst example. One is next to Braden Biggs' house. He's operating a construction company. I've reported it several times. I got pictures. And they got a travel trailer in the back with a full family living in it. So there are differences in how these businesses are treated. The Hitching Post is no exception. And everybody's guilty. That's why we're here. Everybody's guilty. He wants a venue where he can multiply his revenues and civic happiness and have people come and enjoy themselves. The residents, they want nothing of it. Their excuse, well, we paid $1 million for the house, so we shouldn't have to listen to that all night long. It's crazy. Both sides are wrong. Like she said, they've had years to mitigate this, and they've just piecemealed it together for years. And another point I must make. You seem to have a problem with advise and consent. Mr. Stearns is not responsible for any of this except doing his job. He has total immunity for this. Okay? That's a fact. You can't change that. So whatever happens here tonight, he's safe at home plate, okay? 3, the disparaging differences between code enforcement, you know my view already. And then there's noise, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I love my music. My neighbors don't hate me for that. They hate me for everything else. I got one neighbor who doesn't like me. He even gave me the music that I play. But because I won't let him have his fifth wheel with people living in it, 3 times code enforcement told him, well, we're not really enforcing that, but you're on city property, so you got to move it. 3 times in a month. Finally, you got to move it. Again, Mr. Stearns is home safe. Don't even look in his direction, because if it goes to court, you lose.
Forrest Moriarty.
Council, Mayor. With this situation that's been going on, it made me think about what was great about Apache Junction.
Sir, what was your name?
Forrest Moriarty. Forrest like Gump. Moriarty. Hey. Hey. And
Your address, please.
9138 East Encanto.
Thanks.
My family
is
moved
that
out here
Apache
30 years ago.
Is that Apache Junction?
No, I live just on the other side.
So you're in Mesa?
Correct. My family moved out here 30 years ago and has had businesses in Apache Junction for 3 decades. My wife and I moved out here and across into Mesa and back into AJ and back and forth over the years, and I now am also a small business owner. And Apache Junction was attractive to our family because it was a small town and it promoted a small town environment, but that meant small business owners, not a lot of box stores, and that is what made this town great. That's what made this environment great. And if you guys want to promote an environment that keeps Apache Junction feeling like a small town, but has a benefit of being a great and amazing city without these types of blemishes, then we have to get back to what made us great, right? And that's making us attractive to businesses and attractive for people to move here, not something that makes people go cringe when they hear about what's going on in Apache Junction. For me, I've wanted to basically tell you guys that this whole situation, regardless of what side of the issue you've taken on this, what side you see it from, what perspective you see it from, just like the first woman that got up and spoke, the perception from small business owners, from people that are at the chamber, people in small business in the Mesa side, we're looking at this going, I don't want to be any part of that. So all I wanted to come here and do was explain to you that just like this previous woman said, the perception is bad, and it's going to scare away homeowners, it's going to scare away business owners. I myself have multiple family members with businesses here that are looking at this as a travesty. So I hope that you correct that. Thank you.
John White.
Hey, this looks familiar. John C. White, my present address, 2610 164th Street Southwest, Linwood, Washington. And I did fill out a form to speak, but you'll see the box there checked, Mr. Mayor. It says, if necessary. At this point, I don't have anything to add. I don't know, I might want to add something later, but at this point, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
John Litton. And we do need everyone to state their address, if they could.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to be here before you. I'm going to speak specifically to the first paragraph that you have in your noise ordinance. And I actually would love to see someone explain to me that it relates to any kind of music or any kind of noise, but that it's in a loud or unusual manner as to be offensive to the senses. Now, you try to explain that one to me or explain that in a legal court of law. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't go with me. And let me back up. I am a Mesa resident. I live at 651 South Canfield. I'm a 45-year resident of Sitka, Alaska. And through 5 different governors, I was appointed chairman of the Alaska Tourism Marketing Council, where I chaired public relations for the whole state of Alaska. And I would like to maybe add on to what Forrest just said, and that's a perception that's going on amongst a number of people, and it's really directed to you as a council. And where I think that's going to show its head will be during the next election. I have been a resident for 11 years, and I am a frequent visitor to the Hitching Post. I go there for relaxation. I go there for the ambience, the good food. And during the winter months, there are so many snowbirds that attend there. Trust me, what you're doing is not something that you're just doing to Mo and Tina. You're doing this to thousands of us, people that love this place. Now, you can shake your head no. You don't have to listen to what I have to say. But I'm telling you that there's a lot. I've attended many of the functions when they have gone out to raise funds for people that were in dire need. One in particular was a police officer that was shot and killed, and over $30,000 was raised that night for his widow. And I would like to see if any one of you have ever gone out and done something like that personally yourself. We need to support these people. And I appreciate the fact that I have the chance to speak, and I would hope that my comments would at least register with some of you. Thank you.
Mahmoud Mohiddin.
Mayor, if I may. Mayor. Mayor, if I may. Would you please ask everyone to give their name and address at the beginning of their call to the public?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thought I just did that. So yes, we need to name and address to start.
Mahmoud Mohiddin, 2304 North Cortez Road, Apache Junction, Arizona, 85119. I have a question for you guys also. City put out all the history about the Hitching Post from 2006 to all the way till now. Did anybody have opportunity, or I have opportunity to speak the history also, or are you guys not gonna allow me to just say whatever I wanna say and go back and sit down? Because that's not fair to me, not explaining my side of the story, but the city put it out their side of the story. Don't know how much is the truth to it or not, we can find out. If you guys allow me, I can tell the story. If it's not, I would just say whatever I have in my mind about this, just to be for this meeting.
You'll
The
have
council is gonna allow me to tell my side of the story?
3 minutes. You have 3 minutes. Keep talking.
That's not 3 minutes, it's not because Why the city put out that one about 12 years of the record outside, the public can see it, look like to me the mow is wrong and hitching post is wrong. That should not be there then. That's not fair. I'm asking the council, now that you guys are sitting over there, there's 100 people over there, read this one, look like to me mow is wrong or hitching post is wrong. This violation, other violation, did not do, reduce the fees, give a gift, all that stuff is nothing to pertain to this meeting. Why the city done that? The city is supposed to be discussing over here the nuisance charges, what to be procedure need to be made to protect the business owner and other people. All right, I guess nobody want to answer my question.
We can't.
Well, I explained this is not a public hearing. Everyone will speak, and then we'll talk about everything afterward.
Okay. I'm over here, the city code was tossed out in a council, in a court. That was not good code. They applied the state statute. Their videos, the person, Newmaster, he's a forensic guy, those video got tossed out. Verdict, you look at it, that's fine. If I was convicted, that's fine, I'm guilty of it, I'm gonna appeal, I'm gonna fight to the end till I die, but I will not give up on it. I just have to let the people know. And the only reason I'm doing that, the Hitching Post family behind me. And I'm gonna fight all the way. Just council have to think about it, anonymous phone calls. Over 700 phone calls from 2016 to 2018. If anybody want to see a public record, I already have every public record. There's no citation with issues to Hitching Post. If was loud, none of them the police officer came to ask me to turn it down.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess so. I didn't have a chance to read that over. Colleen Shipman.
Colleen Shipman, 1615 West Mockingbird Street, Apache Junction, Arizona. Can I start? Hi, Council. I'm Mr. Mayor. On your wonderful timeline, we skip, for some odd reason, welcome to Apache Junction, from 5/14, when you revoked the CUP, to June 2019, when Mo dropped the federal charges. Now, what happened in between? Could it be a meeting between the mayor and two council members saying that if he dropped the lawsuit, then the charges would be dropped? Did you not shake his hand and tell him that? And in his country, he believed it. And so he did it. This town is horrible with back bedroom meetings, with racism, with the injustice of treating one business different from another, one person different from another. We have a horrible reputation now. It needs to stop. We need to quit being the good old boys. And you need to start with the Hitching Post. Thank you.
Denise Molson.
Denise Molson, 2094 West Windsong Street, Apache Junction, Arizona. All I have to say is I am a former employee of the city of Apache Junction. I have been here for 13 years. I have lived in the city for 15. And I have to personally say, as far as discrimination, I have seen it myself. Because I was discriminated against in my own office, which I filed a lawsuit I had the right to, but I chose not to because I believed in the city. And I wish I would have not have done that, because I know what Mo is going through, because I had a hearing loss, and the way I was treated by my employees, by my boss, was so devastating in the city. So I can imagine what he's going through. The only thing I ever have to say is we all stood up and we pledged allegiance, and did we not say, justice for all? There is no justice.
John Hetzel.
My name's John Hetzel. I live at 8910 West Quail Trail in Queen Creek. I'm the one who brings the bulls up there to the bull ridings every week. And with this, like this bull riding that Mo brought us into for, this helps out so many kids. And that's what we do it for as kids. On any given Thursday night, there's at least 50 kids out there trying to learn how to do this, trying to stay out of trouble. And every year with those kids, we send handfuls of them to, there's several national organizations for rodeos, and we send these kids to their national finals every year. And they get their start at the hitching post. They learn from it. We do free clinics there for the bull riding, and then you got the nights that we do the rodeos. If the rodeo does run long on that, we turn out all the sound off and everything so nobody could hear us finish. You know, and that way, you know. And then also on that with the sound, Mo has spent a ton of money rebuilding that sound. You know, we've had a whole new sound system built, and the speakers professionally placed in a way that the sound doesn't go back behind us anymore. And I don't know if any of you guys have been to that bull riding, but the arena sits off to the front, and the buck and shoots are back behind it here, and then the pins where the bulls are behind that, and in between that little wood fence and Highway 88. And that sound system is so, like, the crowd could hear it, but we can't even hear it in those back pins, so those people behind us definitely ain't hearing it. And let me think. I got a whole list of stuff. And also businesses, you know, it's Mo's business, it's a small business, but there's several small businesses that we bring to this, and we bring it to the hitching post. We raise money to help families, help kids. We've done several, like charity events and fundraisers to help several different people in need. And so it's Mo's business, it's my business, it's those businesses, other businesses that come in and help, and it's a whole community thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Butler.
Bruce Butler, 1670 East Cody, 1 block south of Superstition on Tomahawk. I've lived there for 8 years, been a resident of Apache Junction for 26 years. And this is really surprising. You know, I sit there on my porch, and sometimes even in my house, and I hear the music coming from Phillies. Not during this time of year, obviously, anymore, but during the wintertime. and I am a mile away, and I hear the music coming from Phillies. That's okay. I don't have a stick in the wrong place. And the idea of something like Moe's, and I've been there, I've attended it, it's not that loud. I don't know what the idea is. It's a rodeo town. We have a wonderful rodeo out there. And when we have the rodeo, it's loud and it's nice. It is a little further out. But I don't know how many people, including myself, considering where I live on the Superstition and Tomahawk, can hear the train whistle from the ghost town. You get within 2 miles of ghost town, you hear the gun shows. It's a wonderful attraction. Snowbirds and everything, they come there, they spend money and stuff. I don't know where that money is going. Hopefully it's not going to the wrong places. But we hear these noises all the time. This is Apache Junction. Those noises have been there forever. There's been one house that was built before Moe actually started his place over there, and that's not an issue. And then these people come in and build houses. What are you going to do, build next to a dairy and then say the dairy has to move? Come on, let's be reasonable. And, and I'm just talking about, I've had steak dinners over at Moe's many times. It's one of my favorite places to go for a good steak dinner. And I hope this isn't some sort of racist thing. I mean, I think, as American people, especially as politicians, you guys should be way above that, not dealing with this media crap that they're sitting there trying to push out. Racist is ridiculous. And if this is something like that, I'm appalled. But the idea of doing anything against, the hitching post is ridiculous considering all the other places in town. But they've been there. They've been there for a long time. Hitching post, they got all the permits and everything, and they put in an arena that was not acceptable. No offense, Mo, with the first one you put in? I've seen it, I'm a contractor. And then, so you guys had him upgraded, and he upgraded it. It's a very safe, very nice, comfortable place, and we go there to have entertainment. What are you guys gonna take away next? That's pretty much about all I have to say, so think about it.
Bonnie Goldsberry.
$2320 North Apache Trail is the property that I own, 500 feet from the hitching post. That's where I operate my small business. Claremore, Oklahoma, St. Paul, Oregon, Timberlake, South Dakota, Pendleton, Oregon, all cities with full-size rodeo arenas within the city limits, embraced by the city leaders for the economic effect they have on their communities. Following a redo of Payson, Prescott, Wickenburg, and Cave Creek areas, the Camp Verde Arena Association discussed the positive multi-million-dollar impact this redo had on their communities. My dad didn't have a choice to put on a uniform to serve this country, but he did it with pride and dignity. He did, however, have a choice to raise his family on a farm involved in rodeo, a sport that still honors the flag and embraces the national anthem and instills community values in the people who attend, participate, and support. Just like the people who have had the opportunity to visit the hitching post and the bull riding, not just from the rodeo sport, but from the people who work there and the owner. While this area may not be the most important part of Apache Junction to you guys, it is to me. I left a 35-year career to relocate here and continue a small business. My business is operated by appointment, so I'm working at all hours. I can tell you, because I am less than 500 feet from the hitching post, the complaints being made about noise and dust are largely untrue. I have listened to the recordings, and a lot of the noises that are presented are enhanced or fabricated. Now, once I came to the forefront and supported the Hitchin Post with my fenced-in lot for parking, I too became a target. I now have a camera pointed at my property. Not really sure why. I know you all have a thankless job a lot of times, and I'm here to say thank you. But I'm also here to say, please, please do a better job. Make better decisions for us small business owners. Please do not make decisions that will be a multi-million-dollar benefit to a handful of people who claim to live full-time near the Hitchin Post, to the detriment of our small businesses. Small businesses have been something our country could be proud of. Please keep it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Townsend.
Kelly Townsend, State Representative, District 16. I'm a resident of Apache Junction. I've made it very clear about my feelings about what has happened to Mo and Hitching Post. I want to be proud of my district. I want to be able to go to the legislature and say, Apache Junction's in my district, and have them say, you're lucky. I can't do that right now. I'm embarrassed. I really am. Everything that's gone on here in my dysfunctional district has made it back to the legislature. It's made it back to the Attorney General's office. They want to know what in the heck is going on in your district, Townsend. It's embarrassing. I want to see equal application of the law to the businesses that are here in Apache Junction. You do not treat one business different from another. House Bill 2389 is my bill that was going to clarify the vague statute that was used to target Mo. We all know that that was wrong. So we're going to try and clear that up, and the intent of the entire legislature is to do so, to put in some kind of a noise code so that no one else can be victimized in such a way. I'm awful fatigued because I've been defending people who are being abused by people in power. I want you to ask yourselves, have you made this personal? Have you made it personal? And are you abusing any of you, any of us? Am I? Have we ever abused our position because we happen to be in power and we have a personal vendetta against somebody? Set it down. Don't let yourself do that. And do what's right. You know in your heart what's right. But when I find out that someone in my district is actively targeting someone who is brown and his license plate says Wizard 1, I want to know why. I want to know why the leader of this effort has a license plate that says Wizard 1. You guys can find out who that is. But I better not find out that there's racial motivation targeting any of my constituents. So if you've made this personal, set it down and do the right thing.
Jacqueline Parker.
Jacqueline Parker, 8847 East Jacaranda Circle in Mesa. There have been a lot of great comments that have been made today. I want to thank the council for holding this meeting, Mayor Suri for calling it. As an attorney, I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the lack of enforceability and the void for vagueness problems with the City of Apache Junction ordinances. The Apache Junction complaint processing policy states as its purpose to provide for the fair, efficient, and uniform treatment of complaints made to the City of Apache Junction. As a city council, I'm sure that you're just as concerned about fairness to small business owners as you are about fairness to local residents. Unfortunately, however, in reading through your Apache Junction noise ordinance, there is a disturbing lack of accountability and no protection at all for small business owners. The wording of the ordinance is also so vague as to make it essentially useless as a guideline for anyone hoping to obey its requirements, and should, by virtue of its vagueness, be unenforceable under any standard of fairness or justice. For example, it states that a public nuisance includes music played in such a loud or unusual manner as to be offensive to the senses of any considerable number of persons. The vagueness of this language raises several questions. How loud is an offensive level of loudness? How many people is considered a considerable number of persons? Is there a different standard for areas that are zoned as commercial versus residential areas? The ordinance only bans loud music, cars, and construction. Is there a different standard for different times of the day? Or is music and construction to be prohibited forever and always? Additionally, since the ordinance only bans loud music, cars, or construction, as an attorney reading the letter of law here, I would assume that any other noise-related complaints that do not include these three items should not be entertained by your city employees who field such complaints. Those of us who are here tonight to support Mo and the hitching post know that this is not the case, and there is at least one significant business owner who is being penalized for violating unspecific and arbitrary rules. Now, in conclusion, the solution to this problem is simple and twofold. Number one, you absolutely must augment your current city ordinance to provide more specific requirements with more clearly defined parameters and penalties, especially if you plan to enforce them to the detriment of someone's livelihood. Number two, the best way to equalize the treatment of an entity under the law is to require accountability by both parties. Your current policies allow for anonymous reporting, which is part of the components attributing to this problem. So, and with that, I will just close. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope that you will take this into consideration.
Thank you. Ellen Pearson.
My name is Ellen Pearson. I live at 141 West Hunter Street in Mesa. I'm here to support Mo. I've come out here all the time. I volunteer at the Good Shepherd Horse Ministry, and I'm out here a lot, and my desire was to move here so I could be closer to, I just love Apache Junction, and I like to be closer to the horses. But I want to support Mo. I was looking on this timeline, and I've seen a lot of things in here that said parking. And I thought that has got to be the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. The man has tons of area out there. You could park practically the size of a supermarket parking lot, the area, the land he owns. And some of these things in here are just seem really ridiculous. And I just want to support him and say he's done a lot for this community. He's helped a lot of people. He's had a lot of charity things that he's donated time and money to a lot of organizations, including the one that I'm with, and I just want to say I support him. And I hope you all think about what you're doing and how it could hurt, and the children that are supported. Kids that could be out getting in trouble and everything are out there. They're taking an interest in something other than gangs and other things. They're out there with the rodeo, and it's good, healthy fun, and good. It's just all around good, and I just want to say I really support him.
Thank you. Breck Pinkerton.
Breck Pinkerton, 2290 East Junction Street, Apache Junction. I almost feel like I need a shot for this. I ain't no talker or anything, so bear with me. Being a native here from the East Valley, I grew up here, born and raised. I've watched the insides and I've watched the goods, seen the goods and the bads about the East Valley. I graduated from Skyline High School, class of 2002. Had a lot of nieces and nephews attend Apache Junction High School. Growing up, I watched them hang out in the wrong places. I've lost a couple nephews over the years. I lost one sister over the year, residents of Apache Junction, due to drugs. You know, I thought about it for the last couple of weeks. AJI Guns. That once was Don and Roses. Drugs flew in and out of there like no other. Crackheads were in there like flies on dog shit. All right? Part of my language. Then it turned into a strip club. And I believe shortly after that, you know, that didn't last long, but a lot of drugs were running in and out of there. Then me, a gun advocate like myself, was happy as heck that it became a gun store. Because it kind of cleaned up that area and then knocked down the drug population, you know, it's just one thing at a time. I think about it back at Dash Inn, one of my sisters that I lost due to drugs. She worked over there at the Dash Inn years ago. I remember growing up, my dad used to love to stop there to get some gas and stuff, and we'd go out boating or fishing out on Canyon Lake. That was our stop. Well, he started seeing a turnaround of that damn place, and too many drugs. He didn't want to bring his family around there. I've seen a couple other places, you know, and I'm reminded back in 2016, I sat out here and I did the dirt work and built that little park right here on Phelps Drive. All right? Crackhead Central. Do I think a little bit more of that area needs to be cleaned up? Oh, hell yes, I do. But you guys, you know, Apache Junction's got a bunch of cool attractions, and the people that are from here actually know what those attractions are. The state park. You got the lakes out here. You got the Mammoth Saloon. I ain't no fan of the Mammoth Saloon, but you got the Mammoth Saloon for all the tourists. And one of the greatest attractions out here is the bull ridings. Being a bull rider, a former bull rider, I should say, and I rode bulls for 12 years, I would have killed growing up as a little kid out here on the east side of the valley to have a place like that close to try to fulfill my dreams like these little kids out here got. All right? It's one thing that could be keeping them all off of drugs. But you guys don't see the bigger picture of it. I know this town pretty well, and I much would rather have had, let's say this, I'd much rather have had the opportunity to ride out here than have to drive clear out to Queen Creek. You got to think about this. Apache Junction is not a money town.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Well,
It is not a money town. A lot of these families don't have money, and there's little kids out there that want to frickin' live
Point of order.
and try to, what's that?
Now,
You-
point of order.
Everybody
Your
got
time
3
is up.
minutes.
You have to
Well,
go
just give
sit
me 1
down.
second here. That's kind of like I'm like Kevin Bacon here in Footloose for a second, all right? Give me a daggum
gonna-
second.
Everybody got 3 minutes.
You know what I mean?
You get 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Be fair to everyone.
Mr.
in-
Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, let's take a 5-minute
Important
break.
facts.
Mr. Mayor, let's take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
All right, we've been requested to take a 5-minute break. We'll be adjourned.
We're all under God we trust.
the outside talking.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and we're still hearing from folks. We got Brittany Schnabel.
Brittany Schnabel, 1312 West 18th, Apache Junction. Is that it? That's good. Okay. So few things I want to bring up. One, everybody's been talking about Mo and this and that, but what you guys are forgetting is that outside of just Mo, the residents love the hitching post. My daughter is 6 years old. She bought her first pair of boots last year because she wants to be a cowgirl. She wants to learn how to ride on a sheep. She calls Scott Jones her hero because he's a fantastic rodeo and a fantastic spokesman. I mean, my daughter didn't know that world until the last 2 years, and now it's like, it's her everything. I mean, it's inspired her to want to be more than just somebody that likes to dance, somebody that, the normal things. She wants to get in there with the guys and have fun, and that's one thing everybody has said something about. Drugs and this and that. It's true. I mean, we've got to have a foundation for these kids. And if we can go 1.5 miles down the road, 2 miles down the road, and we can support a local community or a local business, why would we take that away? I mean, I'm getting married. I was supposed to go get married at a very nice, elegant place, and I pulled myself from there so that I could get married at the hitching post because I wanted to bring money back to the community. I wanted to help people that help other people. They just literally gave and donated money to one of our fellow residents that died. I mean, how many companies do you know actually care? They care. Mo is amazing. What he stands for is amazing. And I know you guys may not agree with that. You may not like the color of his skin. But guess what? This is the United States. We are here for a reason. He has busted his ass, excuse my French, to be something. And now you guys are saying, sorry, somebody doesn't like your business. Then move. Seriously. I mean, now we're telling people that money is more important than a business. What about them? They've invested everything they have. Everybody in this room is frequent to the hitching post. I personally go for just the bull riding because I love it. I love the atmosphere. I love what it brings. So I'm asking you guys to really think about what's being presented before you guys tonight because it's serious. You can not do it, but guess what's going to come up? A bunch of buildings, a bunch of houses, a bunch of just stuff. Why do that? Why knock down a landmark that so many people love? And think about our winter guests. Holy moly. I mean, they would be devastated to know that this is even happening. So I really ask you guys to think about this. Thanks.
Scott Burns.
Scott Burns, 3240 East Emerald Circle, Mesa. I'm a 30-year member of the East Valley, or lived in the East Valley for over 30 years. Sergeant at Arms for the Lost Dutchman Motorcycle Club. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. Mayor, council, thank you for the time. So I'll try and gather my thoughts and go quickly here. As an organization, the Lost Dutchman Motorcycle Club, we are familiar with what it is to be targeted, familiar with what it is to be unnecessarily harassed and have assumptions placed upon you just simply for enjoying freedom. When we see something like this going on, where a person's individual freedoms and rights, where businesses are being unnecessarily and unfairly treated, we do feel the need to stand up and say something. Our organization has utilized the hitching post a number of times in the past to hold one of our bigger events. It's a charity poker run. Mo has always been gracious enough to host us. We raise significant amounts of money that all go to Sunshine Acres to support families in need, children in need. And we're proud to be participants at the Hitching Post. We're proud to come into Apache Junction and support. Many of our members live in Apache Junction. It's sad and a travesty to see some of this going on in the nature that it is going on and to see the targeting that is taking place. We would ask that you sincerely reconsider, look at your ordinance, craft it, as some of the previous speakers have said, craft it in a fashion that's actually intelligent, enforceable, you can comply with. I don't like to hear kids screaming. Can I demand that they get bottled up if they're making too much noise in the backyard because it's disturbing my peace? I don't think that's necessarily fair what the ordinance is intended to do. I appreciate the time this evening. Thank you. Might have got close.
Robert Match.
Robert Mach, Arizona Tireman Services, 1755 South Sombrero, Apache Junction, Arizona. Lived here approximately 24 years. Been in business here for approximately 13. I feel what Mo is going through. There's been a thread of this stuff going through for other businesses in the past, and Mo's going through it for years. We've gone to it approximately off and on for 8 years. We've been issued licenses, and then turned around and said that the city or that the property wasn't zoned for that. Lost 4 years revenue on it. To find out it got sold to somebody else with the owner being dead, so they couldn't have changed it over if they wanted to. So we were BS'd at that point. When Mo started having this problem, me and my wife went behind where the neighbor's house is on that street to listen to music. You could barely hear it. It was just crap. You know, I don't know what else to tell you other than the city council, I know, is a guiding force. You guys don't, you know, stand on top of people with whips or anything like that. But at the same time, you got to get control of your staff. You really, really got to get a rein on these guys. I've been in the same position as Mo, not quite as bad as that, but my revenue loss for that 4 years is like $400,000, which would have made my retirement. I'm still working because of that. And I don't want to see Mo lose his butt and have to start all over again because somebody has a problem with his color, his location, or wanting his property. Thank you.
Terry Brinkley.
Terry Brinkley, 382 West McKellips Boulevard, Apache Junction. I've lived in my home since 2001. I love Apache Junction. I love what it stands for, except for the prejudice that I've seen recently with Mo. His skin is brown. He's an American citizen. He's a small business owner. He was a computer programmer. He came here, started a small business. He wanted a fresh start. He looked at the community. He looked for ways to improve on the community. How can he help? He put in the bull ring. Well, he has live music. And don't get me wrong, I'm a dancer. I go there to dance all the time because that's a great band. But he put in a bull ring. He has mutton busting, bull riding for kids. These are kids that have, what else is there to do out here? Without going through this heat or getting a ride from mom, they don't have time. He's teaching them, because to be a bull rider, to be a mutton buster, to get out there, it's healthy, it's good, vigorous exercise. You take that away from the kids, what are they going to do? They're going to be sitting at home on a tablet, again, playing Call of Duty or whatever it is and doing this and that. Get them outside, get them fresh air, teach them a work ethic to work around animals. The responsibility that this teaches these young kids is because of Mo. He's given them the opportunity. And we get neighbors that come in, they buy a house near, not too close, but near a bar that has music. And they complain. It's just like the one said, you buy a house, buy a dairy, and now you're going to complain about the smell? Get real. The noise is not that loud when you're by the houses outside. I can't even imagine, unless the house is really shoddy, you shouldn't be able to hear it inside. How is that disturbing them? The sound system they put in is adjusted to stay away from the houses. Everything Mo put Everything that they threw at Mo to change, he did his best effort to accommodate. That didn't work, they went to the next one. That didn't, and he accommodates. That didn't work, he goes to the next one. This man has bent over backwards to help the community in so many ways, and he's being discriminated against because somebody that moved in says the music's too loud because they have hands in with developers, they want that piece of property. Yeah.
Ari Kalin.
Pass.
Okay. Deborah Hurley.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Deborah Hurley. I am a homeowner of 2208 West Baseline in Apache Junction. I have lived in Apache Junction since 2008. I remember when the Hitchin Post was open. It was a place that we enjoyed. It had an atmosphere like nothing else. He is bent backwards. This is my 5th city council meeting over the Hitchin Post. You told him he had to build a wall. You didn't approve that. You let that go. You told him he could have the parking. Thank the Lord for that. Then people don't have to walk across the street and get run over. So, I mean, really, you guys have helped him, but you're not every time. It's always something else. Why can't we all come to an agreement that there's nothing wrong with the Hitchin Post? It is a place for people to go. If you are from another state, you know why people come to AJ? They could go to Mesa, but they come to AJ because of the country music, and it doesn't cost a dime to get in. And they're able to eat, have good food, they're able to listen to music. I don't understand why this man has to go through so much. He has been through enough. He has done everything that this city has asked him to do. He really has. And he keeps getting harassed. He keeps getting another conviction, another fine, which I think is all baloney too. Why did he get fined, and why is he on probation? He's not a criminal. He came to this country because he wanted a better life for himself. And he chose Apache Junction. And everybody in here chooses Hitchin Post. Thank you.
Okay, so that's everybody, so no more call to the public. So I'll start this off with, a lot of things just don't make sense, and this timeline, this is the first time I've seen this. I don't know who wrote this, and I'm reading through it, I don't agree with some of the things that are on here already. I mean, the way our council is, we all have jobs and we work. We're not full-time councils like you see on TV with the mayor of New York. So we do try to pay attention as much as we can, and we have 4 meetings a month, and we're supposed to do our homework in between. Staff does have some reign to do some things, and not everybody up here agrees, and you'll look at the votes on that. So some of the things I want to get to tonight. One is the anonymous complaints. I'm hearing 700 of them. How is that possible? And what if they don't like another business on the trail that has music, or Phillies. We have a new one opening up that used to be Trace Banderos. They're in a neighborhood. What's to stop the same thing from happening to them? We need to come up with a solution to that. So how do we prevent that in the future? It came up several times, what is a nuisance? If you are drinking and driving, there's a breathalyzer that registers what your actual alcohol level is. If you're speeding, there's a radar gun that registers what the radar is. You know exactly. You can't make an anonymous complaint and say, I think somebody was going 65 down here, and then just go arrest them because somebody said they were going 65. So we do need to come up with decibel level. We do need to have that, and Representative Townsend was working on that. The council was working on it as well, and we kind of dropped it because we thought something was happening there. So I think we need to get back on that. So I'll let some other folks go here. I have some other things to come back to.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I want to, number one, thank every single one of you for attending this meeting. I applaud you. I applaud your efforts. However, the city has no control over somebody picking up their phone and complaining. We're not there telling them, complain, complain, complain. We're not doing Excuse me, I listened so patiently to every word you said. I didn't make any noises. I didn't do anything. I listened to you, and I think that I deserve the same thing. We cannot do anything about the Pinell County Court decision. That is their decision, not ours. We did not ask them to make that decision, nor did we have any input in that decision. And I think it's real important that you folks understand that. We're not here to debate whether the Hitching Post is a wonderful venue. I think it is. And we're not here to debate whether Mo is good and benevolent, because I think he is. He's done some marvelous things for this community, and I applaud that, definitely. We have no plans to knock down the Hitching Post. We have no plans to put him out of business. We have no plans to do any of that, and nobody wants to take the Hitching Post away or all of the things that they do. Nobody has said that at this council. I have spent 14 hours in the past week in front of my computer going through council meetings to try to hear where somebody has said anything at all like that. And it simply hasn't been said. What we're here to do is tell you what the noise ordinance is, and the mayor's already said we're already looking at it. We know that Representative Townsend wants to drop it back in the legislature next January, so we're looking for her input for that. We're here to tell you that. We're here to talk about the process that we go through at this point. If we need to change that process, that's something we'll talk about. And that's why we're here. So can we do that, Your Honor?
Yeah, so folks, you've all had your say. We're now going to discuss among ourselves, so you need to let us have the courtesy of doing that. Robin just brought up that this is out of our hands. It got to the county. How did it get to the county when there was never a citation issued? Why did that happen? And what's to prevent that from happening again? Robert, I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, you pretty much echoed them. Well, I'm looking at the counts, and, you know, they're on or about this day, on or about that day. I understand why they were sent over to the county. I understand the reasoning behind the whole thing. What I don't understand is why was it felt necessary to send to the county. I don't know how it even made it past the paper shredder, to be honest with you. These things should be looked at more thoroughly, and when you have anonymous complaints without a specific day, without a specific time, I don't know how in the world it could have reached the level of county. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Your Honor,
Yes.
could we let the county attorney speak and possibly clear up a lot of these issues? And he's here out of a courtesy to us, and then possibly he could get home sometime
Joel and
tonight.
Jennifer, that is allowed under the way this meeting's set up, so.
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
So this is the county prosecutor, not the county attorney.
Yes, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I appreciate your invitation to come here today and to address the council. Will I have time to, I can answer any of your questions, and I have time for remarks if that's appropriate. Again, thank you very much for allowing me to come here today. I know that one of the questions you want to address is how a case like this makes its way to the county attorney's office. This was what we call a conflict case, which is where we receive a request from another prosecutorial agency to, in this case, sometimes they're already charged and they realize they have a conflict. Like, for example, when, say, a county attorney employee is actually the victim of the case, they realize and they go, and then they send it over to our office for prosecution. In this case, what it was, there was numerous complaints that were generated by the Apache Junction Police Department. There was a police report, despite the testimony of former Officer Kreidler. There was a police report. It was provided to, submitted to Mr. Stern, the county attorney, I'm sorry, the city attorney, or actually Mr. Yuva, the city prosecutor as well. They were reviewing that sometime this was shortly after the alleged dates of defense are from March through May of 2018. The case was being reviewed by Mr. Yuva, as I understand it, and then the defendant decided to file a federal lawsuit in which he named Mr. Stern, the city attorney, personally in that lawsuit. That lawsuit was, of course, subsequently dismissed, as was his baseless defamation claim against the neighbors in this case. That was filed in state court, but that's another matter. But the issue that created the conflict was with Mr. Stern being named personally as a defendant. So we assumed the review of that case. It was not charged in Apache Junction City Court, by the way. It was charged, it was under review at that time. They realized they had a conflict, they requested it, and our office accepted it. From there, once a originating prosecutorial agency sends a conflict request to another prosecutorial agency, it then is the sole responsibility of the prosecutorial agency that receives it, and they are responsible for all the charging decisions and the prosecution of the case in its entirety, which I am responsible for. I personally reviewed every single one of the CAD reports that were submitted with the police report and the police report itself generated by the AJPD. I personally viewed every single one of the videos that the neighbors had taken from the stationary surveillance cameras that they had put on their property in order to document the extreme and excessive noise that was generated from the hitching post on a daily, on a bi-weekly basis. I reviewed thank you, Mr. Rizzi. I reviewed every single one of those videos, and I determined, in my professional judgment, there was more than sufficient probable cause to charge originally 15 counts of creating and maintaining a public nuisance. Not under the Apache Junction City Code, but no, I'm not. But in violation of Arizona Revised Statute 132917, which is the public nuisance, the criminal nuisance statute.
We do need to let him speak, please.
Over the next, and I charged that, I received it sometime in July of 2018. I charged the case in November, I believe, of 2018. Over the course of the next 2 years, I met with the neighbors on a consistent basis. I stayed in contact with them. I even came out myself to witness what was going on at the hitching post. And it was extremely loud. It was extremely loud and extremely, it was a nuisance, absolutely. So I would like to, if Your Honor, I'm sorry, if the council would accept, I would like to enter into the record the verdict in the case and read from the relevant portions thereof. This case was heard over 3 days with 16 witnesses testifying. The state presented 9 witnesses, 6 of whom authenticated video and audio recordings taken on security cameras at their residences at various times on the dates and time frames alleged by the state. 8 of the state's witnesses are residents of the five homes closest to the hitching post. These homes were located from 478 feet to 1,012 feet from the bull riding arena. And I would note every single one of those homes was, the residents of those homes were there prior to the bull riding. And even prior to those homes, those residents there, those 4 along Cortez Road were there even before the hitching post existed. Absolutely, yes, every single one of them. Every single one of them, yes. There was one individual was there, moved in 2015, but he lived with the noise and the nuisance for 3 years before.
Mr. Prost,
Yes.
you probably should direct your to us instead of the audience.
Thank you. So they all live there. This has been the primary falsehood that the defendant has perpetrated throughout the pendency of this case. It has been, and it's been amplified by the state legislature and the state legislator and her social media posts, and it is false. It is absolutely false that these people did not live there before the hitching post began bull riding. They were there first. Now, I'll go on. The recordings that were made during the bull riding events on Thursday and Saturday evenings on the dates listed in the complaint, the state alleged the recordings show that the defendant's businesses was operated as a public nuisance due to the excessive noise and lighting. Various witnesses testified about the sound from the bull riding events, including screaming from the crowd, an announcer on a public address system encouraging the crowd to scream as loud as possible to win a prize for the loudest scream, which is in evidence in the trial. If you want to look at it, I can show it to you as well. And encouraging the crowd to cheer loudly on multiple occasions to keep screaming. And these were ear-piercing screams that went on for 10 seconds or more.
We were there. They weren't ear-piercing.
Okay. Various witnesses testified to their reactions due to the noise, such as having to close doors and windows and turn up the volume on their TVs to drown out the noise, having their sleep affected, being irritated by the noise, and replacing windows with double-pane windows in attempts to dampen the noise. Witnesses testified that the noise started when the bull riding arena was first active, and the noise level kept increasing over the years until the time frame in this case. Witnesses recounted attending many city meetings where they told city officials of their complaints about the light and the noise from the bull riding events. They testified that the defendant was usually present and also spoke at the meetings, identifying himself as the owner of the business. ARS 132917 requires the court in this case to determine whether the defendant knowingly maintained or committed a public nuisance. Public nuisance, as alleged by the state, is anything that is offensive to the senses or an obstruction to the free use of property.
Can you wait 1 second?
Can we get the door shut? What are they doing?
Your Honor, I think it's very, very sad that folks will not listen to those others who are testifying just because they disagree. That's your disagreement, we understand, but at least be respectful.
Yeah, we still want to hear everything to be discussed tonight, so let's hear everything out.
All right. Testimony established that well, I'll skip ahead a little bit. In assessing the testimony about the light and noise, the court applies a reasonable person standard. In doing this, the court is mindful that the business is authorized by the city through a process involving city staff and elected officials. This agreement, as stated above, the business is operated pursuant to the third amendment to the Economic Development Agreement dated 2014. This agreement adopts a lighting detail, fence detail, exit signage, and the bull riding fence, and adopts the engineer's report of findings. The court will assume that the business being operated within the EDA meets the reasonable person standard. I'll skip ahead a little bit. Again, the court finds that the witnesses in the 5 homes closest to the hitching post were subjected to noise from crowds that was elevated by the unauthorized bleachers. The noise was encouraged, with the defendant's knowledge and under his control, to be as loud as possible, was encouraged to be sustained, and specifically the encouraged screaming for prizes did not appear to be related to the bull riding. The noise occurred regularly and specifically on the evenings alleged by the state. The court finds that using a reasonable person standard, that this noise interfered with the comfortable enjoyment of the witness's property and was offensive to their senses. That is what this case has always been about. It has been about the quiet enjoyment of their property. These people are residents. They're your voters. They're your constituents. They moved to Apache Junction because they wanted to be here. They wanted to be here. They wanted to sit outside on their porches and have a nice evening without having to hear a giant loudspeaker, an announcer who drones on and on and on and on. He doesn't just announce, he just drones on and on and on like he's a DJ. Instead, he just, and then you have the screaming contest, you have the crowd noise, you have the noise from the gates. All of this is extremely
How do you know that the screaming was encouraged if these folks are inside
because
their
it was
home?
admitted in the trial. By the way, it was never thrown out like the defendant said. That's another one of his falsehoods. It was admitted at the trial where you could hear the announcer said, whoever screams the loudest is going to get the backpack, and then followed by a 10 to 15 second ear-piercing scream from the crowd. That is what these people have had to live with for 5 years now. Now, granted, I'm going to be fair and say that there's been some improvement over the second half of 2019. However, this reached a crescendo at around this time. It was unbearable for these people. And now, the reason they're not here is because they've been subjected to a torrent of abuse and to a misinformation campaign by the defendant and by a state legislator. They are scared. They are scared that people are going to come pick at their homes. There's zero evidence, no evidence was presented at the trial or elsewhere that anyone wants to buy the Hitching Post property. Who wants to buy this property? The defendant, he puts forth these fantasies in social media and on traditional media that people are trying to shut him down and buy his business.
Correct you. I mean, you've
condominiums.
got a law degree and everything, but
Yes, sir.
you're kind of just injecting your opinions now instead of.
Well,
so.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Wait a minute, Your Honor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We've listened to their opinions, and he's a lawyer. He deserves the same respect.
They had
and the
3 minutes.
Crowd,
So.
and the crowd has been disrespectful to anybody else. So if you want to leave, leave.
I would like the crowd to listen. This gentleman has driven all the way from across the county. He doesn't have to be here, so we appreciate that.
To help explain the facts, if you want the facts of what happened. And
Hey.
this is what happened in court. It is the facts, whether you want to hear them or not. This is the facts of what happened, not what's been on Facebook, not what's...
Gail, you're engaging with the audience too. Let's keep this just among ourselves up here if we could. You guys all had your 3 minutes. We're going to discuss this up here, so please be mindful of that. I want to go back to something you said about why Mr. Stern, why this lawsuit was dropped. One of the reasons I called this meeting is because a lot of times things would happen and we'd be called into executive session. And if you know how executive session works, once it's discussed there, we're no longer allowed to discuss it. So I wanted a lot of these things to come out now as much as possible. We still can't talk about certain things in executive session. One of the things that one of the commenters brought up was that there was a handshake and that charges would be dismissed. Now, this was talked about not in executive session, so I fully believe that I can talk about this. But yes, we, Councilmember Schroeder and Vice Mayor Barker and I, we did have meetings and we convinced Mo to drop the suit. We were under the impression that in the least that a letter would be written asking that the charges be dropped. Once we did that, then suddenly the rules changed and that couldn't happen. So I'm just throwing that out there. And I was very disappointed in City Attorney Mr. Stern on that.
The county attorney's office has no say in what goes on in Apache Junction city government.
But
However,
that is how
by that time this
that
case
is
was
how
charged.
on this timeline that the lawsuit was dropped.
Right.
And then we all felt stabbed in the back that we did not try to then quell this, and it went on, and now he is at risk of if he does violate his probation, he could go to jail just for running his business.
And
So-
let me address both those. At the point any sort of handshake agreement was reached, and I have no idea if it was or not, I wasn't privy to that at all, but I was responsible for the prosecution of this case at that point in time. If Mr. Stern had called me and said, look, he agreed to drop his lawsuit, would you drop the case? I would say absolutely not. No, I would not have dropped the case. In fact, I had charged another count, I believe, in June of 2019, and I don't know when this handshake agreement was reached, but I certainly received no communications whatsoever from Mr. Stern or Mr. Yuva about any sort of agreement to dismiss the case. There were negotiations, I will add this, there were negotiations with the defendant and his attorneys at the time, his former attorneys, if he would mitigate the sound to a substantial level and be a good neighbor, he could probably have earned a dismissal, but he squandered that opportunity. He failed miserably in that endeavor.
Councilmember
And he kept
Rizzi.
trying to delay and delay and delay the case. That's why the case took this long to get to trial.
Councilmember Rizzi wants to get some time.
But I would not have dismissed this case at Mr. Stern's request, because this is our case. He had conflicted himself off the case. Therefore, it's our decision completely.
Krista.
And Mr. Volkmer's decision.
Krista.
I have some real concerns with
Yes.
this. And it doesn't just pertain to one business. Now, obviously Mo is well appreciated, well loved in the community, the business that he does.
And I could say
The
I
oppor-
respect him for his business.
If I may have my time, please. Thank you. The opportunities that he gives the children in the community and the charities that he donates to and the people that he helps is common for small businesses in this community. I have a concern that this isn't going to affect just one business. My concern is that this is going to impact all the small businesses in this town, because obviously all it's going to take is anonymous phone calls
These are
of
not
people who, if I may finish and have my say, please. I've been patient.
Scott,
I have several concerns here. There is no decibel reading, so your idea of a nuisance, the neighbor's idea of a nuisance, these people's idea of a nuisance, and my idea of a nuisance can all be different. And until we have a standard that is cut and dry, black and white, like if I run a red light and get a ticket, or if I'm speeding, we don't have that. Now, there have been assumptions made, and one of those assumptions that were made was that this audio and this video that was provided, that it was legitimate, and that it actually wasn't tampered with.
Because the defense expert testified it wasn't tampered
okay.
with. That's how, ma'am.
Okay.
The defense expert got on the stand, well, he was telephonic testimony,
Okay.
but he stated
So-
he saw absolutely no evidence of manipulation of the content of the videos.
Okay.
That's why, ma'am.
It's
I'm sorry, you testified at the trial, but you weren't there during his testimony.
And I'm glad I wasn't. Thank you for that. My concern is that this could happen to any small business here that backs up to a residence, and we have them all down the trail. I have one, and I could name many, many others, and all it's going to take is anonymous complaints. When I first got on this city council, one of the things that I brought that was a huge factor to me was people who can use anonymous complaints to harass. It shouldn't be allowed. It should have never been allowed. And unfortunately, the council at that time voted against it. I'm not able to bring it back. I hope we do bring it back and look at that, because it should not be allowed. There is no reason why somebody should be able to call and complain and call and complain. And just like when we have officers that go out to a certain number of times to a business that has an alarm that goes off, they get a fine. If you want to, there was no citation and no tickets given to this business owner. That concerns the hell out of me. That concerns the hell out of me that he has never received a ticket or a citation, and it ends up in court. This isn't America. This isn't how things happen in America. This is not due process at all. We need to create a standard. We need to have a standard. So that when there are complaints, if there are issues, if there is noise, smells, or sounds, or whatever, offenses, that there's a standard to measure that by. But to prosecute somebody, that this guy could lose his liquor license over this, and not even have a standard in place is a tragedy. This should not be happening. I don't understand how anybody could look at anonymous complaints and prosecute somebody the way that this business, and this could happen to any, there's a lot of business owners here. It could happen to any other business owner here.
Krista, can Chip would like to go.
Yeah, and one of the things that concerns me, and I've gone to city staff, and I've even talked to you about this, and unfortunately, Mr. Lamb's not able to attend because of recent exposure as well. But I have asked, and the county has agreed to, if there is future in the, and I put this in the 24 months of his parole, or not parole, excuse me, probation, that we have the county respond to noise complaints from the people in the area, and of course be using the county rules for noise. And let you give the statement as far as the...
Sure, and look, as far as our office is considered, this case, except for the appeal, is finished from our end, and we believe that any further action, because there is no conflict with Mr. Stern or Mr. Yuva, should be handled in the Apache Junction Municipal Court. Or you could seek out another prosecutorial agency. That may be another issue, and we send a letter to that effect to Mr. Yuva. But in terms of future complaints that could be received, the sheriff's office is, look, I don't control the sheriff's office. We don't have any say over that. If they want to, monitor that situation, that's up to them and to you and to any agreement you have with the sheriff's office to monitor future noise complaints. But all we've wanted is what we believe we've achieved in this case, which is to put the defendant on notice to try and be a good neighbor, to mitigate the sound, and to live with the people who lived there first.
Can
They
we,
were there first. That's all we've asked there. That's all we've asked.
Can we get on to the actual sentencing and the fine structure, and how was that arrived at?
Judge Campbell imposed $200 per count times 13, which is $2,600 fine, and 2 years of unsupervised probation, which means that the court monitors it, but he doesn't report to any probation.
And what happens if more complaints come in?
Look, it has now been established as a matter of law in a court of record that he is maintaining a public nuisance. He cannot claim ignorance. He cannot claim that he doesn't know that what he's doing can constitute a public nuisance. Whether it does in the future, I cannot say that it does.
But it's just a matter of opinion on those neighbors. If they don't like someone said they didn't like kids screaming. I don't like rap music.
Well,
but I can't, have someone jailed because I don't like rap music.
There's a couple things that could happen. The court can do an order to show cause. They can have him appear and explain what is going on. If the court isn't satisfied with that, there could be ramifications on probation. That's up to the court. We don't plan to file any petitions to revoke probation, I don't believe, unless there's some sort of gross retaliation against the neighbors. There's really no reason for us to continue to file a petition to revoke probation.
So Joel Stern,
as far as future prosecutions, he's certainly not immune from future.
That is out of our hands now. Any future calls, they don't no longer come through us. They all go to the county. Is that correct?
I think it was a question that that council member Wilson wanted to bring up with the council to talk about. Mm-hmm. So there's no written agreements. There was going to be something called a memorandum of understanding between the sheriff and the police chief.
Yeah, Chief Kelly can talk to that. There has been some interaction between Pinal County Sheriff and AJPD on that, and so we could talk more on
Is
that.
that something that the entire council votes on?
No, there's no vote. No. It's an administrative process. So it's up to the police agencies to cooperate on that issue and educate dispatchers where the complaints go, if there are any complaints. Do they go to sheriff or do they go to the PD? So if the chief wants to speak on that, or you have questions, he can ask about, he's been in touch with the sheriff, I have not.
Might be good to hear from the chief on that, and Vice Mayor, for clarifications, what type of calls?
Does anyone have any more questions for the county prosecutor? Can we have him sit down?
I have one more.
I have one. Can I say one other thing about my interactions with the neighbors? I've worked with them for 2 years. These are good people. These are very good people. They are veterans. They are active duty military. One was just called up to the National Guard. They are commercial airline pilots who have to get up very early in the morning to fly planes. That's who these witnesses are, and they all share a common goal. There is not one inkling of racism among them. Not one. Not one. And I've worked with these people for going on 2 years now. I've met with them numerous times. And every time I met with them, they said to me, I do not want to shut the hitching post down. Every single time.
Okay.
These allegations of racism are hurtful, they're false, and they're wrong. And a state legislator should know better than to perpetrate them. That is disgusting.
Thank you. I have a question, Jeff. I have a question. Yes. So,
I'm not ready for it.
folks, we need to keep the audience quiet.
I just want to clarify. So when this was brought over to you,
Yes.
you decided to move forward with them based on the video evidence.
Yes, and the police report that was generated. Yes, that's part of the reviewing.
Right, but you saw that video evidence and said, okay, boom, there it is. This is
Yes.
it. This is why.
Absolutely.
And there was, how many videos?
There were 13 counts. Some of the videos did overlap, so there was probably about 30 to 40 videos.
30 to 40?
Yes.
I've seen those videos. I don't recall seeing 30 or 40 of them, but I've seen a handful of them during planning and zoning meetings or
Some are better than, some are noisier than others, obviously. Yeah.
So that's where these 13 came in. You took 13 of these 30 or 40
13
videos.
cases of offense, yes.
And then you said this is where each one of these are going to
Correct.
apply. So you're going to take, so even though potentially that, like you're saying, some of them overlapped.
Yes.
So like if all of them were done on the same night through 6 houses.
I would have only charged one count for that.
You would charge one count.
Right.
But this is kind of saying that these were
And I
done
chose not
over.
to, there were other dates that were requested, I chose not to charge because the video evidence, it seemed not sufficient in my estimation to constitute a nuisance, so I chose not to charge certain.
These same good people also asked for 6 months in jail, which, why would they ask for that? I don't understand
We have
that.
people, well, look, the state never asked for upfront jail, and I did not think that was appropriate, but I have sentenced people to decades in prison in my time as a prosecutor, and witnesses and victims and witnesses come in and ask for all manner of sentences. So, but they're allowed to address the court just like any other person would, including the defendant, and they had their piece. I don't specifically recall them asking for the full amount of jail. One or two of them may have. I don't know.
Okay.
But it doesn't detract from what they had to go through for the past 5 years.
Do we have any more
perpetrated by the
questions
defendant
for?
and his supporters.
Okay, go ahead.
Being back to the nuisance, these were nuisance charges based on anonymous complaints with no standards set for the noise. Could this potentially happen to a resident? If I get 100 complaints or 80 complaints or 700 complaints to my residents anonymously, could I be charged the same way and end up in court for making noises?
Again, it would have to meet the statutory definition of under 1329-17. If you read the verdict, and look, I'm not going to get into well, I can if you want me to, but if you read the verdict, the judge explains the difference between a public nuisance and a private nuisance. If you were causing a private nuisance that annoyed 1 or 2 of your neighbors, then the answer is almost certainly no, that could not be charged as a public nuisance. This was an ongoing nuisance that affected an entire neighborhood and what the judge considered to be a considerable number of people. Now, there may be some debate about that, but that's what we have the court system for. The judge rendered his verdict. There is a direct appeal, which we will handle.
I just have one more question. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Robin. Go ahead.
And they were not anonymous
It's more of a
complaints, as
follow-up,
I've stated before, numerous times.
If you,
9 people testified, all of whom the defendant got to confront and cross-examine at the trial. 9 people from seven households, I believe.
Robert?
I just, one more, at the trial, did the judge throw out the videos?
No, he did not. Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. But that is another one of the falsehoods that the defendant constantly perpetrates. The judge did not throw out the videos. You can't a video is not thrown out if it's admitted into evidence. All these videos were admitted into the evidence and considered by the court. The court made a statement.
Prosecutor,
Yes.
sir, the court used those videos to show that the events happened, but not how bright or how loud it was.
That's true.
That's in the judge's findings.
Right. And let me explain that. The videos did not have decibel meters on them. They did not have any sort of measurement on them. And the state never, at any point in the trial, ever presented evidence that, at this time that reached 80 decibels or 90 decibels. The state presented a witness testimony which under the statute can be used to establish the elements of the offense. But the videos were not thrown out as the defendant claims. They were admitted to evidence. If they're admitted to evidence, they're clearly not thrown out as he claims. And his own expert testified that there is absolutely no evidence of manipulation or alteration of the videos themselves.
Okay.
He had some issues with the reliability, but reliability and action, and I heard the word fabricated used, which is ridiculous. Fabrication means to make something up that's not actually occurring organically. That did not occur here at all, and his own expert testified to that.
Any more questions before we ask the chief to come up? No. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I want to address one thing about some of the things that we've gone through also up here and that these good neighbors do. And someone made a comment about this being personal and former council members. Today I received an email from a former council member, and it's funny that only 4 of us up here received this email. Robert, Krista, Chip, and I. Why would this former council member only target us with this email and not the other 3? What is being insinuated or colluded there? I strongly suggest each of you read the documents related to the Hitching Post, including the court's decision on the public nuisance, and take no action to have these public documents removed from the city website. No one is talking about that. Compare the facts in the documents to the radio interview, that's something that he's heard somewhere, and find so many inconsistencies from what the court actually did. Mayor, your campaign signs say no more special interest, and yet that is exactly what this is. You say one thing and do another, which is fun to point out to voters, and I'm going to come back to that. How council members handle this meeting and this whole thing in particular has now gone well beyond the neighbors, and it's being watched very closely. There are suggestions that perhaps a recall may well be in order. So we're being threatened with a recall because of the mess that each of you have created. How did we create this mess? If anything, these former council members and former mayors created this. We've inherited this. And as for special interest, I look at special interest as being money coming in from out of the town and for something. The businesses that we have in our town are our interest, and that's who pays our salary. That's how we get tax money. So, yeah, you're darn right I'm going to put our businesses as a special interest because I want every one of our businesses to be successful, and I don't want this happening to them anymore. And this is also one other thing, and this is a public record. One of these folks on Facebook admitted that he was following me to trying to see, because I have more than one house. I live in Apache Junction. And there was a police report done on that for a serious threat. It doesn't feel good to be threatened and to be followed and tailed. And also, there was a public records request for all of our phone records up here, too. So that has all happened, and there are records on that. So, Chief, would you address what is being discussed with possibly bringing the sheriff in to do?
Mayor, City Council, the only thing we've discussed so far, I talked to Sheriff Lamb and the undersheriff and discussed the possibility of handling noise calls only. as those would come about. We have set a tentative date if that's the direction we want to go. It was just a discussion. We haven't formalized it. So it was a topic that was brought up by Vice Mayor and Mayor were at a meeting, and we talked about it as a possibility. And I talked to the sheriff and asked him if he would be willing to consider it. He said he was. And then I got further communication with his undersheriff and discussed some possibilities of how we could make it happen and when we would make it happen.
I would prefer that we do that sooner more than later, because with the, the seriousness of this, if there's more complaints, there could be revocation, revocation. So I would suggest we move ahead with that.
Could
Bryant?
I ask
Yes.
a question?
Sure.
So this MOU would be all noise complaints? Or is it a specific noise complaint?
Meaning particular businesses or?
Yeah, I mean, because there are other noise complaints in our city,
Oh, no,
people
no.
call
It
about.
would not be with, it would just be with the hitching post, the sheriff's
So it will
office.
be very specifically only the hitching.
Only the hitching post, correct. We don't have any other issues. So hence you're hearing the issues.
So,
Yes.
Could we get, I'm not sure who here, if it's Joel or our chief or you, can we get or maybe the vice mayor, can you clarify for people's understanding of why this is important to take the city out of these complaints and put it into the hands of a different agency? Can you make that clarification, please?
And my idea behind it is actually to have an independent view as to the noise levels, if it's a complaint. That way, it's not, well, all 7 of us going out there and saying, 1 and 2 of us say this, it's too noisy, 2 of us say no, and the others say, well, it could be. It's all interpreted as to what you're hearing. Unfortunately, I have a deficit in my hearing range, so what's not noisy to me could be very noisy to someone else, where you bring in an independent meter that will read the noise level, to me is removing the human aspect on this. And I wanted this to be done during the period of time of the probation. And in the meantime, we can be working on our noise ordinance ourselves and make I'll say the improvements in establishing a good solid and get the training for the officers and the equipment as well.
Let me just make one other comment. In regards to whether when I talked to the city manager, we decided to go forward with the sheriff's idea or our idea to go forward. There's no issue with the police department handling what we've handled this far. The police department has been directed when they had a call for complaint or a noise issue that came through, and like any other person that calls in on 911 or on a non-emergency number, when they respond to a call, the person on the other end has an option to call in and leave their name. They choose not to, we can't force them to do that. But if it's a noise complaint or any other complaint, they respond out there. They put down the facts that the complainant has about whatever this topic is. The officers are basically stuck between the dog and the fire hydrant, and I've said this before. They go out there and find the facts, put the information down, submit the information to the prosecutor's office if they decide to accept it or decline it. And as the prosecutor so graciously said from the county attorney's office, and I love harassing them as much as I can, they staff a lot of cases, they look at it, they talk amongst themselves whether a case is prosecutable or not. Once we file the paperwork, it's up to the prosecutor's office to handle it. The police department has no involvement in it except for when it's called into court. So whether we go to the sheriff's office, talk to the city manager about it, or you stay with the police department, we'll be the fact finders, and that's what we put down. We put the information down that's given to us, and whoever the complainant is will eventually have to go to court, speak before the judge, and give their side of the story. And the judge's side, the man in the black robe, ultimately decides whether the person's guilty or not guilty. We don't get involved in it. There's many cases I've had over the years that I've lost cases and I've won cases, but the judge makes the final decision. But the thing that's problematic right now is a lot of the hype information that's going out and misinformation. And I think the purpose of the council having this meeting tonight was try to dispel some of the facts versus the fiction and some of the hype that's going out on Facebook. And I don't look at Facebook. I can't stand this thing. It causes too much because people with anonymous opinions put down what they want to say about everybody, and it's unprofessional. Your department does the job they can as professionally as they can, and they represent the people without any biases. We don't care what race they are. The complaints are handled as the calls come in. 54,000 of them last year. So that's all I had to say. So whatever we decide to do, I'm more than happy to work with it. We want to make everybody a viable business in this community. Tax dollars, as you said, pay our salaries, and the people in this community are wonderful.
You made an interesting comment about anonymous opinions. Anonymous phone calls have great power also, obviously. Any more questions for the chief? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I really don't have any questions for the chief, but I agreed with what he said in that our police department hasn't done anything wrong. Our city hasn't done anything wrong. And it's almost like we have the tail wagging the dog here, that there was victims in this case. And there was a defendant. And we're re-victimizing the victims, in my opinion, in having the sheriff have to intervene. First of all, the noise calls are at night, and it's not for music, it's for the shouting at the Bull Arena. So it's 104 times a year. Nobody wants to be disturbed 104 times a year. The Harley shop had some issues with some noise problems when they had events. They built a very tall wall behind their building. They now have no problems. But I don't see the point in having to have a sheriff intervene that has 2 people on at night to cover from Queen Valley to the Goldfield Mountains. So how much of a emergency is going to be a noise call from Apache Junction, who's not even in their jurisdiction? Let alone, we have our own codes. They don't know what our codes are, but to enforce a county code on a city resident, I mean, to me, there's a lot of legal implications there that it's just looking for a bigger mess than what we have. But I'm glad tonight that it was announced that these calls were not anonymous. We know who made the calls. Everybody knows who made the calls. They're people that live directly behind there. And it's not about the music. It's about the shouting from the crowd during bull riding. But to involve another agency in a problem that we have with one business, we have 3,200 business licenses within this city, and we have one noise problem repeatedly. In the last 4 years, we've had 2 noise problems. One is with the Hitchin Post, and one was with a drummer. That one got resolved. And this is what we have on our books right now. It hasn't been a problem. I understand the crowd aspect and the enthusiasm in bull riding, but face the crowd to the west, so you're yelling out to Highway 88, not neighborhoods. To involve another police department when ours hasn't done anything wrong, ours is immediate, I think you're just trying to, it helps the defendant is all it helps. Not one person in here that's ever had a complaint would want to wait for a county sheriff to show up instead of your own local police department. Not one person here would want a citation thrown in the garbage can and just gotten rid of if you made it. That's not the way the system works. If someone has a complaint, it has to be looked into. And that goes for everybody, not just those 5 neighbors. It's everybody in here. You don't throw complaints in the garbage can just because you don't want to deal with it. I appreciate the effort that Councilmember Wilson made trying to set this up, but I don't think it's our solution to anything that we have going on right now.
Okay, she's given her opinion. I feel it is a great solution and a great start to handle these few hours a week until 10 o'clock, that we have approximately 40,000 people, and seems like 39,990 of them like this thing, but the other 5 get to say no. So
And I don't think that.
anyone else want to
Yeah,
comment?
I don't think that's a fair statement, because these people don't live behind there. These people haven't heard what they've gone through. And to discredit or just shove off just because you like the hitching post, we have to protect our businesses, but we also have to protect our citizens. They deserve it just as much as a business does.
But,
Okay.
all right, valid points. A lot of people like football games and NASCAR. It's very loud. It's not for everybody, but I think it's a great that we have this entertainment venue in our city. And it is a draw. It's also funny that the county uses the hitching post in their promotional videos, and yet they prosecute the hitching post. So, yes, Krista.
Was it not the city council that approved the bull riding?
We did.
I mean,
Absolutely.
and was there a citation issued? It's my understanding there were no citations issued, so
No.
there was no citations issued. I
For
don't
what?
see, for the nuisance, I don't see where he was written a ticket or a citation. I'm not understanding that comment.
Robert,
I-
anything to add?
Well, as far as, the victims go, I understand where Councilman or Councilwoman Evans is coming from. Now, 700 phone calls with no citation does not make a victim. I'm looking at a couple of them here, and one of my favorites is 2 callers for loud PA. Can't hear the music that well tonight. When the officer arrived, the hitching post was closed. That's one of my favorite ones. And then it goes on and on. There's in my hand, I have at least 40 or 50 of them where none of them really came out and said, hey, there's a big issue. There was a call, it started 2 minutes before the time. A couple of the calls, it just so happens they had gone on break by the time the cops got there. So that's the reason for the no noise. I can understand if there were, legitimate issues, that is like, hey, this is bad. But when I'm looking literally 46 phone calls that month, 35 calls that month, 24 calls this month, 11 calls towards the end there. So, and none of these, here's another one. Complained about spotlights through their window. When they found out it was the sheriff's department, they admitted that the lights did not go through their window. So it's, if these were things that were,
Oh, God.
I would really love to see, it's like, okay, give me 5 or 6 of these calls and that's it, and they were proven and well documented. But when I'm staring at just a handful, and none of them resulted in a citation, none of them resulted in you have to go down, turn it down. They all pretty much, couple the county sheriffs, the flag was louder than the music at the hitching post. I mean, and these are just CAD calls about the hitching post over 6 months period of time. So it seems to be more of a coordinated effort than it is a victim mentality. So that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock, so we've heard from the people. We definitely need to, why did the sound ordinance get pushed all the way back to November? Why can't we talk about that early?
I think it's August, and it's, yeah, so what I'm hearing tonight is to we already have a council direction of staff to bring it back, right, Joel?
Yes, it was
August.
still the first meeting in August. We're bringing it back. But remember, you wanted us to put it in one location in the code. So then there's going to be further discussion on that. And if you want to change the code, change the code. I've been telling many councils that for years. They can do it. You can change zoning codes. You can allow whatever you want next to residential if you want to do that. Keep in mind, I mean, there are, people think, oh, it's my property, I can do anything I want with it. Well, that's true to a certain degree, but councils are given the opportunity to control certain zoning issues. And it's been historic. The legislature wanted to take that away last year, and they almost did. So the state was going to control the zoning for every single city and town in the entire state. So I don't know if the residents would really like that, but if you want to change the ordinance, change the ordinance. Direct me to do that, and I will do it. If you want to put decibel meters in it, absolutely, we can do that.
I did submit an ordinance with decimal meters in it.
Well, we have to have direction to staff to do it, and so it's going to come back as in one full location, and then there's going to be further discussion. I expect that. I expect that from the council.
All right, I was going to apologize to the crowd. I know that it's difficult once you've had your 3 minutes and you want to do rebuttals, and under this format, we just can't do that, and especially when you get called out by name. But hopefully everybody got to be heard, and we definitely have work to do yet. Chip, what did you want to add?
Well, yes, and that's where I was trying to, I'm going to say, allow getting the city out of the middle of this and allowing an independent organization coming in and looking at, if there is a noise complaint between now and when we establish our noise ordinance, and that's something I have been pushing for a couple of years now. That way, we are looking at it at I'm going to say, a neutral level and going forward. So if there is a complaint, which I'm pretty sure there is going to be a complaint, that we are trying to be the best stewards of not only the area, but also the residents of the area to actually measure the sound so that we know what we are working with. And if it is a problem, then we have a level that we know what to work with and go forward from there. That's why I requested that, and that's it for now, for me.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, like Robin said earlier, this is democracy in action, and I mean, we need to be able to meet like this and air our grievances. That's in the First Amendment, and this was not pleasant for certain members of staff, and that's too bad. This is our job to sit up here and listen, and so hopefully we can rectify this going forward and protect our small businesses. So with that,
Your Honor, can I just make sure? I'm so sorry, and please, just want to make sure we're hearing continue on noise ordinance. And Joel, is it an administrative act that I can work with the chief and the sheriff on?
Yes.
And I think the rationale, Vice Mayor, is that there's a connection to the ability for the city to be out of that process and allow for that during this temporary time. And do you want to address it in 6 months? Do we want to?
We could come back in 6 months and address it again, or, you know, and I said the maximum it would be is the parole period of time. But, you know, if we do come up with a noise ordinance ourselves and come in, that's when it could turn around and be used by us after we have fully established it. That way to me, we're giving some actual, I'll say, levels of this noise and this disturbance, and with measurements instead of the census that our current zoning, or excuse me, our current rules are for noise.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. With that, thank you, everybody, and we are adjourned.